Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this class, and which will be particularly about the latest updates or the latest upgrades in the AI field. That is nowadays that everyone can, I believe every single person, even a non-computer science person, is using it. You might have for sure heard about ChatGPT, Google Bard, BERT, and other applications that are quite interesting and impressive. Today, we will be talking about that. We will be unveiling the power of these models, which are called transformer models in machine learning, and how they are connected to our own traditional machine learning models and the evolution of these models. So the main presentation will be about the transformer models, but we can talk about transformer models directly before we take a look at how did we get here. Okay, so the title is Unveiling, Uncovering the Power of Transformer Models in machine learning in general. So our agenda for today, I have to be clear that this will be two-part lecture. Part one will be about the evolution of these models. Part two will be mainly on transformer models because it requires more time to get to get an idea how these models, how do they work. The first thing will be introduction to neural networks, the RNN, recurrent neural networks, and LSTM models. Don't worry, I will talk about these three in brief. Then we will have core principles of transformer models. Then transformers advantages, especially in parallel processing capabilities. This is quite useful if you have some experience in parallel computing and machine learning, how these models combine the power of two, which makes it really impressive and super fast. Then we will talk about some applications in machine learning in general. And then we will have a look at where are we at, where the world is at the moment, and what are the potential research and some of the trends that you may be interested in to study on in the future or for your future academic studies. And the direction, this is the academic, the other one is the future and potential direction in this field in general. Where does it go, these transformer models? Okay. And lastly, conclusion about the whole and recap about the whole lecture. And I have to be clear here, today we will be covering the introduction part. All of these parts will have all of these sections will be covered in other parts. Okay. So introduction to neural networks. The first one is I will try to use math as less as possible because it usually you may easily get lost, especially we have little time. And I will just bring you the idea what are neural networks and how do they work. So neural network in general is a system of interconnected units. So is a system of nodes of units called neurons that processes data. They process some data in a layer manifest, in a layer perspective to perform complex tasks. So neural networks, they solve complex tasks through its system of neurons and layers. Okay. Recurrent neural network is another type of networks. Is also a neural network that processes sequences using its internal state that is called memory for temporal tasks such as natural language processing. Don't worry if you don't understand this at the moment. We will get into it very shortly. Then we have another type of neural networks, of networks in general. They call it long short-term memory. Long short-term memory you can think of as an advanced version of recurrent neural network designed to remember information over extended period of times using its special memory cells. And lastly, after all these three, we will come into something called transformer models. It's an advanced architecture that relies on something called self-attention mechanism to process sequences, and it's pretty good in tasks like language modeling, which will be our focus of today. What do we mean by language modeling? Is the normal language that we have. How come it makes sense and it answers accurately, and it predicts what we will say, and it can answer as the way in a way similar to humans, and these ones without recurrent layers. So without, I have to be clear, without neural network, transformer model will not work. Okay, so without neural network, other networks that are coming, they don't perform. Like, you need to understand the neural network. It's the basic in order to be able to go with the machine learning field in general. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at the evolution of these neural networks. Okay, and RNN, LSTM, and transformers. Okay, so the first one are neural networks, and there is a tiny bit of math here, but I will try to be as brief as possible. Neural network is just a set, a system of neurons, and each circle you can think of as a neuron. The first layer, these are layers. The first layer is an input layer, is where you feed it with data. Okay, we said it processes data. It means it takes the data, processes it, and gives an output. And neural network in general is nothing than just a set of weights and some mathematical computations. So it can solve the problem through something called weights. So all it does, it changes these weights to solve problems. Okay, and I will not go deep into its mathematical concepts, but if you are interested, you can ask me and I can answer you. I can answer about all these symbols and terms. Okay, but think about it as you are giving it some inputs, some data, and these data are getting touched, linked with something called weights. And throughout iterations, throughout a process called training, these weights will get updated and they will give you eventually an answer. But that's a simplistic architecture. And you can see here that we have here inputs, and you can see the weights. The only thing that changes here are the weights. Okay, so it goes through weights. This is the neuron, the individual single neuron, and we have something called bias. You don't have to worry much about it for now. And it also gets changed. It's not weight, it's something else. But you can think of it as just another extra weight. And it goes into these computations. Then it enters into something called activation function, which squeezes the result between two specific ranges, because we cannot have the output, I don't know, one of minus 10 and the other one of plus 10 million. It's impossible. We need to have a realistic range. This activation functions, it helps us. and then they give us the output. So as you can see, nothing changed except for the weight, and this is how the neuron works. So interestingly, these neural networks are widely used until this day, and nothing else can work without these neural networks, even the following um, models that we will be talking about. This is the basic. And because we are talking in a lens of transformers, we need to focus on something called memory. These neurons, they don't have any memory. It's just they get the data, okay, and through iterations they give an output. There's no saving. They don't save anything. They just get the data, process it. When they move these data to here, to the neuron, it calls feed forward, okay? And when you see weights are coming back again, it's called back propagation. That's how it solves. Feed forward, back propagation, no memory, okay? That's how neural networks learn. One simple example of letter prediction example of neural networks are, as we said, because we will try to have our examples on, on text analysis and language processing. Okay, so this example I brought for you to tell you just if you have inputs A, B, C, D, E, and as you can see, we have weights here, they get affected, and eventually it will give you a result G, for example. And I have to be clear that in neural networks, you have supervised neural networks. It means before you give it the input and you give it the output. And through these weights, it will get adjusted. In the end, you can give it an input that you don't have the output for, okay? So in the beginning, you give it many inputs and you say, hey, if it's A, then the output is B. If it's B, then the output is C, for example. And in the end, you will give it a letter that it will predict the output through adjusting these weights, okay? And as you can see, there's nothing in it. It's quite straightforward. Feed forward, but back propagation, okay? That's simply neural networks. There's too much about neural networks, but we won't talk about it. We are just talking about it in terms of its evolution to other networks. Okay, so uh, what it's lacking from neural networks are simply, as we mentioned, memory. So what is memory in this term? Memory was introduced in another type of neural networks. It's called recurrent neural networks, okay? And short term is RNN. So what are RNNs? How do they work? RNN is a tiny bit more complex. It's a little bit more complex than neural networks in a way that these are the inputs, as you can see, and these are the weights, right? These are the weights. It goes into, these are the layers that we said we have a couple of layers. But in between, while it's being trained, we have this arrow that's pointing uh, to the layer itself. And what does this mean? It means that there is a little bit of memory. And if someone would ask, what does that mean? It means that uh, the first neuron, okay, it gives not only its output, it gives its information, it gives its input, okay? You can think of it this way. It gives its input to the next one. So let's say, for example, you have here A as an input, A went here and it gave an output. Two things will happen. The first thing is you will get an output, and also you will pass what you have got to the next step. Okay, that's why it's called it's recurrent, the event is recurrent. If this is A and this is B, okay, here you will get AB. I mean, it's more complex than that, but someone can understand it this way, okay? And the same thing will happen. And with each one, you have, which with each edge, this is the information we call it states. And more clearly, because these states are invisible, we call it hidden states, okay? So you are giving an output and you are giving the information of the previous neuron, which is called state hidden states, okay? So you give it output and you give it hidden states. So each one gives its previous hidden state to move forward. That's why you have hidden states. And you can think of these hidden states as a little bit of memory, because it remembers. Here it remembers what happened before, okay? In T is called time series in a step. You make it step by step, because now memory came in. You need to know the steps, okay? So the first step, it came in, just something random came in, but now we have information, we will pass it. You will do the output as neural network, it's fine, but you will remember it a little bit. And that's how it works. If you look inside a neuron of this RNN, you can see that's the input and that's the state from previous neuron. They both came to the activation function. This is, you can think of it, you can understand this as an activation function, and it gives a new state because they merge. The state they merge to perform new memory, okay, for the next neuron. So here, neuron does have some memory, but it's called a short-term memory. Why it's called a short-term memory, we will talk about it. So we have, I like to give this example. It's sentiment analysis of example of RNN, and I will be much interested in understanding how does machine learning in general, through these models, they learn to understand the language, the sentence, okay? And that's what we mean by sentiment analysis. How do they make sense of this language that we use? So sentiment analysis is the task of natural language processing. It's a technology that machine learning, that trains machine to understand text similar to human, okay? For example, you have let's say we have a task that is called, what time is it? How does RNN understands what time is it is actually asking about time? So first of all, you will distribute the words into different chunks as an input, okay? So this is an input, the other one has input, the other one has input, and so on and so forth. Later, you will give it to each one, you will give it to a neuron, and you, as you can see, the first thing, these dots, these clear dots, it is okay. These dots, think of it as a piece of information. Like this, what is inside this? It's dark. Its color is dark, just for you to visualize it. That's the memory. That's the hidden state. Okay, that's the output. These two, they move to the next step. This one has an information that's time. We colored it by green, right? And we have the information of the previous one as dark. Okay, now we have two. We will move these two to the next one. Now we have is as the main one, and dark, green, yellow, and then it, and then question mark. You see, here we have all the information. Here we have all the information inside. I'm sorry, I don't see the questions in Google chat. If you can write them in Discord so I can look at it because I'm seeing the main screen. It's maximized. And if you have any questions, please, you can ask me. Okay, so or write them in Discord. I will follow them. Professor. Okay. Okay. We'll answer. Sure, Professor. We'll answer it. And let me just complete this one. So this is, as you can see, these are the memory. Okay, first one, we have the memory of what. The other one, this is the what word, and this is time. The third one, what time is. Okay, the fourth one, what time is it. The fifth one is the question mark. And by that, okay, so by that, the last output, because it has the information of previous steps, it will make sense and understand is asking actually about the time. I see a question is saying, all right, so two questions. The first one is saying multi-level perceptron is NN or RNN. Let me tell you something. Perceptron is just one neuron, okay? If it's more than one neuron, just one neuron, okay? If it's more than one neuron, it is called neural network. With one layer, you have input layer, that's fine. We don't talk about with one hidden layer, we call it, okay? If you have one hidden layer, two neurons, okay, and more, this is called neural network. If you have one neuron, just one neuron in the hidden layer, you just have one neuron, this is called perceptron, okay? Multi-level perceptron is neural network, yes, but nowadays we call it neural networks. If you have two hidden layers, okay, if you have two hidden layers, then it's called deep learning. It's deep neural network. These are just terms, and I'm explaining to you the basics of it, okay? It's good that you get yourself familiar with these terms. They are the same thing. But here we are in recurrent neural networks. You can say it's more than one neuron, right? But we don't know how many layers here are used. You can say recurrent neural networks. We can say deep recurrent neural networks if it has more than one hidden layer, okay? The other question is hidden state a memorized information? So are the horizontal arrows the transmission? Yes, correct. That's correct. These ones are the hidden states, are the memory of it. And yes, these horizontal arrows are the transitioning information to the next neurons. Okay? And these ones were discovered firstly, and they were being used wisely. Okay? But there's a problem with this, okay? They work, but there's one problem with it, which is someone might notice. Let's move to the other one. So I explained to you. Okay, advantages. I prefer to explain to you here. You can see here the word what took full memory here. And you can see here it took a tiny bit. What does this tells us? It tells us that during the process, through time, this recurrent neural network happens to lose some of the information in the earliest stages. Okay, so keep this in mind. That's the main problem with these networks. So advantages of recurrent neural networks, what they are good for sequential data. Like we saw, we can give a really simple example. When we say A, B, C, it's good on predicting D. It's good at sequential data. Naturally, it's suited for time series text and speech data that we have seen in the past. they are pretty much flexible. They can handle varying length of inputs. You can give it, you can give it different kind of inputs, and you can give it different, you can ask from a different kind of output. It's not dependent on anything, okay? And it has a little bit of context awareness, maintains information across time steps, as we said. They capture dynamic temporal behaviors, which is different than other neural networks. The basic neural networks, it doesn't. It just, the data comes in, comes out. Now this one has a little bit of memory. Disadvantages of recurrent neural networks: we have something called vanishing gradient problem. You will know these terms if you look at it in a mathematical perspective. But I have put for you in another slide that I have tried to do my best to visualize it for you so you get the idea. So it struggles with long-range dependency, like I told you, leading to difficulties in learning. If you have a sentence, what time is it? Maybe it can answer because the sentence is not long enough, and it can hold. It has a little bit of memory. It can hold it, but not if you have a long range of sentence. And we can give another disadvantage if you compare it to neural network, sequential processing nature. The nature of it, it's more computational, right? As you saw in the neuron, the hidden states come and it does mathematical computation, goes to an activation function. So the process is more complex and more intense. Couple of computation happens inside it, which makes them slower and less efficient, okay? And we have something else, this is really important, called prone to overfitting. There's an overfitting problem in neural networks. What does overfit means? Overfit means if you train the network more than usual, okay? So if you, let's say, if you have a data set that's really small, and you are training it over and over and over only those amount of data. Let's say you have 5 numbers and you want your neural network or this recurrent neural network to learn, something more than that, and you just have few data and there is nothing much to learn. So when you train it over and over and over, it overfits. It loses its accuracy, and it's the worst thing for neural network overfitting, because you are exceeding its expectation to solve a problem. And there are a variety of ways how you can deal with it. You need to tune, you need to know how many neurons, you need to play with something called learning rate. We will not talk about it, but just know overfitting is in. Someone is asking and saying, can you clarify about vertical lines of recurrent neural? These are outputs. This is the output. When you saw the classic neural network, when the output was like horizontal, here the output is vertical because I cannot put it here in one slide. You would get lost, but basically this is just the output. This is the output, and these are the hidden state. Okay. This is the output 1, output 2, output 3, output 4. Okay. So, all right. Again, what's the main problem with recurrent neural networks? Is the vanishing gradient descent. Is we lose information as we go. So let's say we have a long sentence, and this one is not able to hold the information of the early steps. And exactly. This one you can say remembers latest steps only. So as it goes, you see the color change it's here. It can remember this one maybe or that one, but the earliest one, it forgets about it. And this is just a pure mathematical problem called gradient, vanishing gradient descent. If you are interested more in that, we can have another lecture. It will be hard, tough, if you really want to understand what's vanishing gradient descent, but you can think of it as it loses the steps. And exactly like this, this is the last step. As it goes, you see it vanishes. The memory vanishes. When the memory vanishes, there's no point. I mean, um, it loses its memory capability. Why? Because they can only save short. Because in the next step, it takes for itself. It doesn't have any balance in between neurons. Okay, it remembers only the latest steps, I would say. All right. So we knew that they are impressive. They work, but they do have a problem of short-term memory. Okay. Now we will talk about how to solve that. So to solve that, scientists came up with another type of recurrent and advanced recurrent neural network to solve the problem of memory and to solve the problem of this short-term memory. So they called it long short-term memory. So they introduced something called long-term memory embedded with this short-term memory. So you have your short-term memory, but you brought long-term memory. Let's take a look at that. It's more complex, so please pay attention to it. So the architecture is how you do have your inputs and you do have your hidden state, that little memory that we talked about. But you have something else called cell state memory. That's the long-term memory inside it. Okay? And the hidden state and the cell state, they both take information. But hidden state, now we know how it works. Okay? The next one comes, it pushes it away. The cell states are not like that at all. They have specific instructions and mathematical computations here and here until they go to the next one. So these ones, they save much more information. They save information of the whole sentence, okay, as they go, all right? But someone will ask, if I save the information of the whole sentence, then I cannot handle it. Like the memory will be so big. Yes, that's why they introduce three. Um, uh, Let me find the word. So they introduce three mechanisms, let's say, to control the flow of the memory. The first one's forget gate, input gate, and then output gate. These three gates, they just help the cell state to forget the irrelevant information, the information that are not relevant, and just to keep the information that are relevant for other steps as the training goes. Okay, so that's the core of LSTM that's so famous is this. Um, they have a cell state memory, and input and hidden layer. Okay, and input and hidden layer together, they go into these three states. Why? To give its main memory, okay, an idea what to forget, um, what to uh, keep. All right, Professor, I think some students they have difficulties with the English, and if they can ask even in Russian, like we can. I, I would ask your help to just translate for them if they have a specific question in Russian. Okay, so yeah, so it's someone asked about the cell state. Cell state is super important. You should understand the cell state as the full information, but these full information as they go, and I will show you, I visualize it and with some animation, how do they work both mathematically and logically. But that's how they work. Okay, so you have the memory and you have the hidden state. Hidden state, we don't touch it, but it will interfere. All of these things, sigmoid is a activation function, all right, and it will get interacted with this matrix multiplication. Okay, let's say they will cross, okay, and they will go to the next stage. Okay, it's like a circuit you can think of, and this one will go to another activation function and will go here. So the exact architecture, why it's like that, I can send you some sources about LSTM, and you can know why, how they discover this, how come they discover this, that this one forgets the irrelevant information and saves the relevant information. But the whole point is your final one will be uh, a new cell state. This is an old cell state. This is an old memory. We saw new information, right? And and um, just a sec. Right. Sorry. Just a sec, Professor. Okay. No, it's all right. Professor, Discord will be more comfortable for any questions. Okay, sorry for that. All right. So yeah, so that's the cell state. That's the cell state. That's the cell state. It saves the information, forgets some irrelevant information. How it works, I can give you more details about that. But you just know every time a new cell state comes, a new memory comes. It's update the memory. Okay, let's open up one. Let's dig into it more and look at it both mathematically and logically. Okay, you can see you have logically, you can see that's your cell state. It goes into a multiplication, and hidden state is getting coordinated with concatenated with your input, goes to all these gates and multiplication. These are the steps. You can see it's purely mathematical how it works. Okay, and this is um, this is this is logical. This is mathematical. So here you have sigmoid functions. You have tan functions. You have multiplication, and another. So a bunch of uh, gates interacting with each other through multiplication, addition, and activation functions. All right. So someone might ask, what is this? This is the output. What is this is coming out? This is the cell state, the input. And what is this? This is the hidden state. Okay. Any questions until here? All right. So neurons have longer, short, and long-term memory here, as we can see. All right. Um, we can bring an example from LSTM, and you might already guess that we have a sentence: a girl walked, and many other words after that. And certainly that's the latest one. All right. So, okay. So I'm seeing a question. How does the introduction of long-term memory addresses the challenges associated with? Sure. So this is a data sequential problem, because a girl walked. You have a sentence, right? Language is a bunch of sentences, and is a sequential um, problem, right? If you have language problems, and LSTM addresses that. The cells addresses that by when you have the input A, okay, to go here, you will have a girl saved in the cell state, right? And when you go to the next one, you will have a girl walk here. But when you have the fourth one, let's say, for example, you will have a girl walked, to a, for example, you got another a, and it goes through these mathematical computations. So maybe one of the word will be forgotten. Why? Because it's not relevant. How it's not relevant? It's mathematic, and it's much deeper. It will require a whole section about that, how these gates they do work. But you just should know that they forget about it. Okay, they might forget about this one, or they might keep this one and they might forget about this one. Okay, but the key idea is you have a memory that you remembers all relevant step during the training. Here in LSTM, it has a memory that saves all the sequential steps, if you will. And that's by itself quite fascinating. And it's widely used since 2012. Before that, but since 2012, it has been used in 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 practice quite a lot. These auto translations that you've been using like a couple years ago was the result of LSTM. These little chatbots that you were using are LSTM, because they are able to do that, and they don't take a lot of memory, and they were quite fascinating. But there is also a problem with them. Okay. So, advantages of LSTMs. What are the advantages of LSTM? So, handles long-term dependencies, overcomes the problem of, vanishing, forgetting the steps, making them effective for long sequences. Um, we have better contextual understanding. So when it looks at overall sentence, it has a better, because it has a memory now, it can look at it much better. Superior at capturing context in complex sequences like language time series data. This is the answer for this question. Because now you have a longer range to cover, so it's better at solving the complex tasks of these sequential problems. And the third one is it's still flexible. You can give it any word you want. It doesn't tell you, okay, this word should be 5 letters, the other one should be 5 also, the next one should be 3. No, you can randomly, you can give it any sentence you like and any length you like, and it can solve it. Okay. and it can give you an output that's impressive. All right, now the disadvantage of these LSTMs, of course, as we saw in its neuron, it's really a high computational cost. The computations that are happening, 3 gates, we have multiplication, addition, we have many activation functions, sigmoid, tan, edge. We have many, so of course it will make it more complex compared to recurrent neural networks. All right. Okay. It requires significant memory if you compare it to neural network and recurrent neural network. Still, these gates forget some information, but it takes more memory and it takes more time compared to other networks that we have. Again, we have overfitting problem everywhere. If it's small set of data, it doesn't have anything, it's always a better idea to give more data, enough data, if you want to solve a problem of machine learning. Data is the key. Like without data, these models, they will overfit. Okay, so there was a question, is it enough to just use LSTM for all tasks, or sometimes neural networks or RNN works better? Well, it depends. If you have a problem if you don't have a sequential problem, I would say, okay, sequential problem, like we said, what time is it? Okay, that's a sequential problem. You have a problem to classify between cat and dogs, you probably will be good to use neural networks, simple neural networks. Or if you have a problem like a short sentences, RNN will be so good because it's not taking much memory, it's taking less computational, mathematical computational happened, and might not overfit. We can't prove that for the overfitting, but these two for sure. Okay, or if you have a long sentence, you may use LSTM, for example. It will be, so it depends on the problem that you have and the data set that you have and how you prepare it. But I have to be really clear. Neural networks, at the end of these models, most of the time, okay, they connect to the normal neural networks, because these ones will be trained on the sequential data. Then you will have a problem of, after you solve it, your solution will be a problem that can be solved with neural networks. So that's why neural networks are the basic of any of those. And the next step, which will be for part 2, I cannot put the architecture here. You will it will be a lot for one session, will be transformers. Okay. Yes, professor, it's until here, the part 1, and the problem with LSTM would be, is even though it forgets some information, but there's something missing in it, and the missing thing is, if you compare it with like human intelligence, right? It's missing something really important called attention. You might remember many things, right? But you are attentive to one thing, okay? If I tell you there is a cup on the table, right? You will know the main object that you are focused on is the cup. You know, there is a table, but if I tell you focus, there's a cup on the table, okay? So you have your attention on the cup. All right. So LSTM are good at solving natural language processing, but they lack attention. And if you have attention around our sentence, like you say, what time is it? What's the word that brings your attention? Probably it's the time. And this is the key idea for the other models that are called transformers, which we will be talking about it in the next part, in other lectures. Thank you so much. That will be it. And I'm open to questions. I hope you all got it.